What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Roll on in, everybody. Roll on in. If you're rewatching live, welcome. If you're rewatching live, welcome. Excuse me, rewatching on the replay. On the replay. If you're rewatching on the replay, welcome. If you're here live, appreciate y'all commenting down. Ladies always showing up, showing out. My fellas that are coming in, I appreciate y'all as well. Interesting week last week, wasn't it? Interesting week. If you're trading on your own and you're not yet inside of our community, Leverage University, to trade live with us and have weekly masterclasses and ask questions and all those things, that is perfectly fine. That is why we do these Sunday market analysis, so you can get a gist, you can learn, you can be exposed, all those good things. And whenever that time comes, we'd love to transition you into a community that is, in my opinion, loving, wanting to learn, wanting to challenge each other. And this is very, very important. We have enough stuff going on in our lives. We don't need any more drama. So we just have a good time, but also it's important that we are making money as well, because the stock market is there for us to do so. All right. So while everyone's rolling in here, I'll give one more minute. We started at 7:15 Eastern Standard Time, 6:15 for my Central Standard Time, and I'm on the West Coast. It is 4:15 going into that 4:20 hour. So today we're going to be discussing what's going to happen in the market from last week, especially after a big, massive week in one direction, right? So last week we had a lot of downside, a lot of red, and when that happens emotionally, people are asking questions. My DMs and texts were kind of emails even. And I'm going to shout out one person who sent me a beautiful, beautiful email, keeping it confidential. But thank you so much. I have not yet to respond to that email, but I appreciate you. You know who you are. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to be the response this week, right? What's going to be the response this week? All right. Thank y'all so much for the hearts, the likes. Beautiful. Appreciate you, Sherry. All right, everybody. If there's any questions or thoughts that you want to have down below, I always welcome anything that gets you to understand me a little bit more, my background, anything like that nature, where you can say, hey, who is this dude? How do you learn this stuff? Like, I'm okay. I'm a human being. I'm not just someone you're watching on your big screen or your laptop or your phone or your tablet. I want you to feel me through the screen. And if that is you, if you are dealing with something in your life as well, hopefully that is going to manifest into good things. I am a faith-based person, so I do believe that good things are for everybody and that we are challenged through seasons. And through those seasons, we have to figure out a way to get over that hump. And I think we do that better together than alone. So there's my little 2 cents. There's my little 2 cents to start us off. All right, everybody, let's jump into it. Welcome to our Stock Sermon Sunday. This is our weekly market analysis where we go over the overall stock market. If you do have questions around the crypto market as well, we'll bring that up. So a lot of questions around Bitcoin and specifically crypto and what that looks like. Even if you're a complete beginner here on the channel or on this weekly market analysis, and maybe you got the email and you're just touching in to say, I didn't even know this was happening. Welcome. I appreciate you. We do this every Sunday. So go ahead and put it on your calendar. We talk about investing long-term. So if you are just a long-term investor and you have a 401k, you have a portfolio that you just buy and hold in, right? This is not all about just trading, right? So trading and investing have different mindsets, but then we jump into what trades we can take throughout the week that allows us to generate income and pull it into our bank account for that specific day and week. I'll touch over briefly the PDT rule as well, the pattern day trading rule. Now that I've got many of you live here, maybe you've watched the video recently. I touched on it with my community on Thursday inside of our masterclass series on Thursdays, but I think there's still a lot of questions or like, I don't know what that even means. I've been getting emails about it, Brian. I don't know, right? But I think there was an aha moment with a lot of my community members and a lot of the friends that I talk about it to, and they're like, oh my goodness. Like, I see what the hype is about now. I see it. All right. So once you understand that, that is a beautiful thing for more specifically options traders, and why, in my opinion, a lot of options trading moved into futures and why a lot of people got frustrated with options trading and why it was so difficult, because you needed a little bit more cash to deposit to be able to kind of, do some things in the trading space that you really wanted to do to make the amount of money that you wanted to make. So with all that being said, what's going on, Trent? I appreciate you. What's going on? Let's jump into it today. Give you agenda. If you're taking notes, number one, we're going to touch about our fundamentals. So we do have a new month that's upon us. So we're going to talk about what President Trump just said. Obviously, the Knicks are going on right now, and the Spurs game is tomorrow. If you didn't know, like, this has been in history, and maybe I should have mentioned it to a lot of it, so I know it's going to come up. I should have mentioned it to my community a while back, but there's been a Madison Square Garden stock market, actual stock, like for a minute. Right. But it's been underneath the radar because it's associated with, the basketball and events and series of that nature. So it's now being presented to the world that there was a Madison Square Garden. And if you don't know what Madison Square Garden is, just look it up. But that's where the Knicks play. And that's where, a lot of the events and so on and so forth happen in New York. So historical spot. So just want to bring up little news snippets that may be out there in the space. We'll touch about that, talk about President Trump as well and what he's recently said about buying the stocks potentially, and this is a bounce point from the market. We'll talk about Bitcoin and where that's going. Historically, Bitcoin has a timeline, right? So a timeline of roughly about 1,064 days and then about 364 days of where it has a downturn, okay? And no, I'm not reading from any notes. So this is straight from the dome. I want to ask you a bit off topic. I had an idea as a beginner. What do you think about opening a separate Robinhood account to transfer options winnings to, kind of X protection? Yes. I'm just going to mention that. So I'll touch on that briefly, Audrey, as well. But yes, a psychological thing. So you don't keep it in that day trading account. So you kind of can separate your winnings and then pull them out. So yes, I agree with that. Yep. All right. Share the screen. Make sure I got all of the things up here. All righty. Put a 1 down in the chat if you're also getting our newsletter emails. That'd be wonderful if I can get a little bit of sentiment around that. That'd be wonderful. Twitter, X. Pull that up. Bring up President Trump's comments recently. What they do? Shut down Twitter? All right, there we go. Of course he said something. Always. He'll save the day. All right. Here we go. Beautiful. All right. So we got X or Twitter up here. And if you're behind a rock, okay, the market gave back one of the biggest days for 2026 yesterday in one single day. The NASDAQ was down over 1,000 points on one single day. S&P followed suit, and we had the IWM or the small caps as well. And there was a lot of sentiment around what that could have been. In my opinion, the market was already overextended, and we had a non-farm payrolls report, which signaled to the Federal Reserve that there could be potential rate hikes. All right. Now, as we know, those things are just news events or fundamentals. Do they mean that they're truth? Yes. But per usual, okay, we still have the Iran deal that's still in the works. So we thought that this was going to be wrapped up. That's why the market kept going higher and higher despite news events. Okay. We had a bunch of data reports that were not coming out well. The CPI report, PPI report, so on and so forth. We know that inflation is still high. So here is a news snippet that came out recently. President Trump says Israeli Prime Minister will have no choice but to accept a U.S. deal with Iran because he calls the shots. I call the shots. I call the shots, so on and so forth. The S&P futures erase all losses and turn green after President Trump says Israel has no choice but to accept an Iran deal. Okay, and we'll look on the charts in just a second. So we've got Bitcoin popping up from about 60,000 to 64,000, just as President Trump says that he has no choice but to accept an Iran deal. We know the game. It's frustrating. We know the game. But I think the most frustrating thing, in my opinion, is that the fact that you have to buy into fear. You have to almost, like, when it gets so painful, buy a little bit long term, nibble, dollar cost average, so on and so forth when you get these days, because the president that we have in office right now, we kind of know the game that he is not going to let a catastrophe happen, even though we would like a catastrophe to happen. In my opinion, I would like to see 2 to 3 straight red weeks. I would like to see the market continue down a little bit more in continuation, not just one red day and then we recoup everything. Now, some of you might not agree, but when you have a continuous momentum to the downside, then you can really, really get positioned for a buying opportunity. When it happens in one day and you rebound when you can't get in the after hours, or right now, if you're not trading futures, then it becomes a little bit of a game, right? A cat and mouse type of game. So all that to say is that tomorrow we should be, and you'll probably see in the after hours, we'll probably be gapped up in the morning. Okay. It was due for a recovery after a day like that. So after you have a big move, you will have 2 things that happens. One, if it's to the downside, you will have a consolidation. All right. Typically. So big move to the downside, couple of days of like chop consolidation. It just sits in an area because everyone gets antsy. Hey, are we continuing? Is this a dip buy? We don't know. Okay. Number 2, it either recovers the whole move, typically, if it's to the downside. Okay. So if we look at the SPY, okay, and we just saw those numbers, let's look at Bitcoin first really quick. Okay. We see a little bit of recovery, but I always not warn, but warrant what that recovery is. Meaning on the charts, we can see a specific type of price action that tells us, is that a true recovery, or are people exiting their short positions, which causes a recovery? Are those true buyers down there on Bitcoin? Now, yes, of course, like people are probably buying into 60,000, but we've been hearing this of 30, 40, potentially 20,000. Okay. So I will bring that up in just a second of what that looks like. All right. Well, Brian, how do you tell? Okay. So let's go over the general sentiment of this week, and then I'll give if you want to stick around for that, because I know I typically do my sentiment first. I'm just going to give the game of what we should look for this week. Is that cool with y'all? Like, if you got to run, got to go, whatever you got to do, tap out. If you don't want to hear the full sentiment, you can wait till the end. Okay. So let's go over what we have this week on the SPY. Let's go over levels on the charts. If you are trading actively in the markets, here are the levels that I'm specifically looking for on SPY. All right. And you can trade either direction. So we have an overall trend to the downside. Okay. We know that. We have a daily 20 moving average that's sitting right at 745. All right. I've talked about those moving averages all the time. I'm not going to repeat myself on here. You can go watch the video on that on the channel. But that was a key moving average that we needed to hold to stay more short-term bullish. Okay. So that is a level that we could come back up and try to retest or reclaim and get back above. So where's that on SPY? That's right at about 740 to 745. Okay. And I'll get a little bit more granular in the hourly. Okay. So what I want to do, I want to mark this right here. Daily 20. These are standard moving averages. So if you're used to the charts, if you're not, I definitely understand, right? But the charts tell us a story of where price is going and where can it, stop and lose momentum, so on and so forth. Okay. So let's look at this 746 daily 20 standard moving average. And then what I want to look at is I want to look at some of these highs right there into 743. And the only reason I'm marking that is because of that support that held up at 743. And then we came down off of that 743 underneath there. So that whole zone right there is an attraction zone that buyers are trying to maybe push back through and take it back to all-time highs, and we just keep going. And this was a minimal dip buy. Okay. Now let's go into the hourly on SPY. And I'm going to mark a psych level. Okay. A psych level is a round even number. So I'm going to mark that 740 level roughly. I'm just going to keep it, right around here. I'm going to mark that 740 and we blast it through that level. Okay. So what you'll see happen is we know that the market does not go down in a straight line. So tomorrow in the morning, if you're trading actively, be mindful that we'll probably bounce or gap up. Right now in the futures market, we're technically gapping up. So we're already here most likely in the after hours. Okay. It'll showcase on my charts probably throughout the time that we're coming here. But I want you to pay attention to, if we're already up in this zone, just make sure you have this daily 20 marked. Okay. Because what will happen a lot of times, just like here, right? If you don't have a broader view, what happened? They announced the PDT rule, pattern day trading rule, was gone. Everyone gets excited. Everyone tells their friends. They deposit money into Robinhood or Webull, and they start trading and said, I can trade unlimited. And they immediately enter calls, and hold those calls overnight. And then they wake up in the morning like, what the hell happened to the market? Okay. That was a lower high bull trap. Okay. That means get everyone excited on the bull side up here, but we're losing momentum and we have poor news, and then you just tank. Okay. So with that being said, we're now in a downtrend that we need to reclaim quickly into a higher low. Okay. So if you're seeing that right there, this is where, in my opinion, for me and my trading, it gets a little bit tough. Which direction you're trying to go. Is this a bottom and you're trying to go all the way back up to all-time highs? And this is more so for my day traders that understand this language. I'll simplify it for people that are just looking at long-term. They're like, Brian, it's not that complicated. Just buy the dip. It doesn't matter. Yes, but when we're trading and scalping and trying to make intraday money, we have to know levels. Okay. So if we're up here into this daily 20 moving average, which is 746, or into this zone, and we're already into that zone, I want to be a little cautious as to, is that another lower high? And then we roll lower, right? Do you see that? So I'm presenting this because if you wake up in the morning, if you've done it before, because I know I've done it in the past, you wake up and like, we're back. President Trump said we're back. Okay. And then price action comes up here and we roll lower for whatever reason. Okay. So I like to present that because most people aren't thinking that way, because the market only goes up. So if you're trading and you enter calls first thing in the morning and we're up here, okay, and you get slammed back down into a lower high, then yeah. Now, can it go higher? Yes, it can. So do you see this lower high set I have right here? All right, we can come all the way back into that 750. That's another top in like A+ short setup. Okay. A+ short setup, because we're technically still in a lower high. So if we bounce and recover pretty much majority of this move and we're up into 750, that's still underneath the big breakdown level. Okay. So I'll be watching that to see what that does. And if we reclaim that and hold, pull back, and it gets very volatile and we hold that into a higher low, then we can go higher. Okay. But keep that in mind on the bigger time frame as still a big lower high change in direction. So if you see a lot of green 1 or 2 days, mentioning that. Can I get a 2 in the chat? Does that summarize SPY? Does that summarize SPY? Okay. Now, Brian, what if we go the other way? What if for some reason I need a game plan and we're down here? What's the lower end of the range, right? 727 is a support. Okay. Not much of a support in my opinion. I'm really more so looking at the daily 50 moving average, which is right at 713. Okay. Remember what I talked about is that moving averages like to gravitate towards each other. So if you look on this daily chart, what did I just draw out? We break, we have a big retest day. We stay underneath that daily 20. We roll back down. And what if we revisit this daily 50 moving average at 713? Okay. And there's also a gap fill there as well at 725. Okay. So all that to say, with the good news with President Trump, and you still got to keep in mind that the deal's not done. Still keep in mind that the rate hikes or what the Fed may do is still a little bit uncertain. So President Trump is going to come in and save the day and say positive things, which we got to be mindful of. But at the same time, trust the charts and the levels to see if we're reclaiming and going higher and going higher. All right. Just my 2 cents there. Okay. If we're trading intraday, if it's a call day, great, trade calls, right? If it's an upside day, don't fight the trend, but zoom out a little bit and keep these bigger areas in mind. My group knows recently I was harping on like Amazon lower. I was harping on, I think this has got lower. I think the market's about to do this. I think we got a little bit of correction. Okay. A little bit of a pullback time. And that was just because I was starting to see price action start getting these lower high pops, and price action was not really going higher and taking out new highs on a daily time frame. All right. Cool. All right. Beautiful. Now, if you disagree, that's perfectly fine. Just let me know. Hey, Brian, this is a dip buy. We need to buy everything, and I'm buying everything I can. Let me know. All right. QQQ, I'm not going to harp on the whole thing here. You can use the same system. Okay. Daily 20 sitting at 722. Okay. 722. If for some reason we're gapped up in the morning, okay, because of that good news, and we're back up into 722, I will be watching that. That's the big level of the daily 20. Do I think we're going that far? Maybe. Okay. But I've got to have some micro levels in here. So I'll look left. Okay. There's a little bit of stickiness right there at 715 and then 710 right there, where we came down underneath that 710 and came lower, which we've already done. So that could be a retest level as well, which would be around 710 to 712. Okay. So if we're up into this zone, okay, Qs, want to be a little cautious. If we can't get back above 720, 722, and we roll back down and take out a new low, that's where we could keep falling. Okay. We got some more gaps to fill down in here. And then our daily 50 moving average is all the way down at 667. Okay. So I tell my group all the time, and I'm telling you all on YouTube here, that these moving averages, again, really tell you a story of where we can migrate to if we start breaking them. Okay. Daily 20, 722. I know it's a big gap here, but the next moving average is all the way down to 667. And then 700 is that big psych level. If we hold underneath 700, 695. Look at that support right there. Okay. See that 696, 695. If we break underneath that, another flush day will start coming. Okay. Another falling knife kind of day. Okay. And in my opinion, if that happens, that's where I'd be a little bit more interested in saying we're getting pretty close to maybe, those swing calls back up, or, a little bit better dip buy, kind of like what we had in March going into April timeframe. I would love to see that. Okay. And that's still higher lows that we can produce. Okay. Just my 2 cents. Again, IWM moving average is a little bit closer here, but again, with the volatility, IWM could be a nice play since it's not as volatile. Okay. IWM, our third index that we like to trade. Typically, these are the small cap companies. So if I mark that, that's right at 284. And then I'd mark the previous day low, which is right at 280. We break underneath 280, keep it simple, most likely moving down in this 273 mark there. All right. Now, I know many of you, I always mention it here. Well, Brian, like if I'm learning, if I'm watching the videos, what do you think about all these moving averages down here? What if we'll get there when we get there? right? One step at a time, one level at a time. Okay. My mindset would not be surprised if something like this happened. I'd be like, oh, those are just gap fills. Right? Like if something happens, I'm not shocked. Just like Bitcoin, when we've been talking about it since crypto winter, right? If y'all been watching me for that long, I talked about Bitcoin coming back to around 35 to 40K. And that's just from the charts. So it's working its way down, but it's pit stop 60. If it starts holding underneath 60K, then we're going down in the 50s. Okay. And in my opinion, we break 60K, we're most likely going to 40. Okay. So one step at a time. One step at a time. If y'all got any questions, throw it down in the chat. If it's a long-term investing question, right, that's cool. If it's a trading question like intraday, intra-week, right, it's a little bit more difficult when the chart's not moving and we're looking at things that, don't have any price action for the day tomorrow. So, all right, let's go into a couple of my top setups for this week for trades. Okay. I'm going to harp on my Amazon here. The bear flag, y'all hate hearing about it, but I'm going to harp on it really quick. This was just an ideal bear flag breakdown, and I just couldn't be patient enough with it. Could not be patient enough with it. My group, our Leverage University group, they probably like, yeah, that man was talking about Amazon for like 3 days straight, right? So all I was looking at was a really big support. This is how you know when the big moves are typically going to happen, either to the upside or the downside, is when you see weekly levels that are holding or weekly supports, weekly resistances. So if I look on a weekly chart here, look at that 255, 256. You see how we were holding there. And what I noticed on a daily time frame is that we broke underneath that 256. Okay. So what I was trying to do is I was trying to short this into a bear flag, right? A bear flag is just, I don't want to get too technical for people. There's the flag, right? There's the pole, big move down. We start to consolidate. There's the flag. And then we start making a next move down. Okay. So Amazon's still one of my top watches because I think Amazon has more room, right? When I see a lot of room to continue with no support in play, Amazon gets below 245. There's nothing until, in my opinion, 230, 235. Okay. There's the daily moving averages. It broke underneath the daily 50. Now, if it reclaims and we get back above 257, then that's where we can go higher on Amazon here. Bam. Okay, cool. We're back up. All right. That's called a reclaim. But if we hold below that 255, 256, okay, that 250 level, then Amazon's trying to come down here. Okay. And we can trade puts down for that. If we look left, look what happened last time at this level, 250 underneath, where to go, 235, 250, 246, 235, 246, 235. Okay. So Amazon, still one of my top watches because it has more room. It was trying to stay strong, but just could not do it with the overall market weakness. So I'll be watching out for Amazon throughout the week to roll down to potentially 235 if we stay below that 250 and 255 level. Okay, cool. Now, for those that are looking at calls on that or looking to pick up Amazon because you like just buy the dip on Amazon, right? You want to have these supports. So if I'm saying puts down, okay, watch for your supports below. Okay, 235 will be the next support. Again, if it blasts through that, there's a lot of room, right? There is a lot of room, kind of like what Meta's doing. Meta, everyone thought was going to rip, and Meta is pulling all the way back underneath $600 now. Okay, so you have to have these wider ranges for some of these stocks and have different buy zones or just dollar cost average for a long-term investor. For trading, got to have level to level. All right, there's Amazon. Let's look at NVIDIA really quick. All right, so we broke a level. That level now becomes resistance. Audrey, how'd you like that 203 call? I think I was harping on this too. Like NVIDIA is going to 203, right? It's going to 203. That's just because it broke underneath this moving average here. The next new moving average was where? 203, right? But Ryan, when is that going to happen? You don't know, but you just know the level that it's migrating towards. So it had to break what underneath 212, had to get underneath 210. And where's it going? Nothing but room to 203. So where is the next level that NVIDIA is trying to go if it tries to break lower, right? Down into 195 or underneath $200. Okay. So trade it level to level. That means if you have that much room, that's a good amount of room to make some money. Okay. But please be mindful of this 203, that it will probably try to hold that level of 203 and bounce higher first. Okay. Back into maybe 210, 212. All right. See what it does around there. That'll be the first point lower. Okay. Well, what if it goes further, Brian? Like the last time it bounced and went to 220 and then went all the way back down. Yes, it's a wider range. So the next level will be up all the way into 218 again. That's still a lower high and then come lower. It's like, yeah, lead, dude. Right? But you got to look at the bigger time frame and look at these lower highs that are there. You see how volatile it is now with even with NVIDIA. It can give back the whole move. Come all the way up here, fake everyone out from 233 all the way back down to 203. It can come from 203 all the way to 218 and then come all the way back down to 180. Okay. So look at the bigger time frame. So what does that mean? That means, well, maybe I can trade calls off of here back up. That is true. Okay. But give the bigger idea, an idea to come lower potentially, where your bigger level of opportunity is it back into this? Potentially. Like I like that call option, in my opinion, a little bit better. Here, all the way down here into 190, settle, and then take it back up. Just my opinion. But it could stop right at 200, 203. Okay. But we got some significant weakness on the semiconductors, or I would just say profit taking. Okay. They've run tremendously. Profit taking is happening, and people have made a lot of money over the last couple of months just with the semis and software. All right. Let me check the chat. Still doing good. Yeah, I appreciate you. Love the TA. Yeah. For those that are new, TA is technical analysis. So using the charts to know where price is going so you don't get faked out just by looking at a Robinhood screen and saying, hey, NVIDIA is back up to 210. I'm like, yeah. What does that mean? That's just a lower high. Get me? So the charts tell you the story of where things are actually trying to go. Okay. So if I'm looking at NVIDIA, great. I can see green, but I'm not sold on it ripping back to new all-time highs yet. For shares, great. Buy some NVIDIA right now. But for trading, the market might want to go lower. All right. There's NVIDIA. Let's look at a couple other honorable mentions that people typically are wondering about. Let's look at Palantir. Okay. Palantir, not the best reaction off of there. Okay. Now, is Palantir still sitting in a support, still sitting at this previous support level here? Yes. Not the best reaction at that 160, 162. Remember last weekend, I told everyone, or I was mentioning, and I like to say told, but I was mentioning Palantir needs to get above this daily 200 moving average. Again, the moving averages are holding true. Okay. If you don't know how to set those up, go look at the video here on the channel. Moving average into 162. It pushed up into it. We're ripping Palantir. Swing calls. Not yet. All the way back down. Okay. So this is what separates those that are trading and don't have too much of a bias very quickly or too soon. Okay. We're reacting at levels. So can we consider calls back down here at Palantir? Potentially. Right. But again, look at the moving average stack. Where are we back under? Oh, dang, we're kind of back under these daily moving averages, all the way underneath them again. 140. Okay, so where's Palantir trying to go? Back to 130. It's already kind of on there. What if it breaks 130? I guess back into the 120s. Like, I guess we're all the way back down there again. So keep these wider ranges intact. Okay. These wider ranges. So trade level to level. So if we pop on Palantir, okay, does this mean you can pick up some shares because President Trump mentioned Palantir is going to the moon? Yes. Does this mean swing calls on Palantir just because President Trump said Palantir is going to the moon? Be careful of that stuff. Okay, be careful of that stuff. If someone mentions it, they're already in, they took profit up here, he rolls it back down because the Iran deal's not done. All right, it's just a game of cat and mouse. Okay. So what I'll do on Palantir is I'll simply just mark the daily moving averages, which is at 140, 141, and I'll trade off of those. That just simply means if I'm watching the charts, I'll watch either for it to reclaim back above. Okay. But if it gets into there, I want to be mindful, does it get above it with strength? And then we can take it back up. Okay. Cool. Lower level of Palantir down into the 125s, 126s, gets a little bit messy down in here. As you can see, it could bounce. So it's technically in support again. Okay. But the momentum is to the downside. All right. All right. Another really good setup that I scalped on at the end of the day on Friday was Meta. And typically with Meta, I will trade 0-day expirations, not highly recommended for beginners or anybody that's not experienced on doing that. But the fact that Meta rejected the daily moving averages and came underneath this consolidation, it's been, I'll mention Tesla too. It came underneath that consolidated period. So it was trading between just say 640 and back down to 600, right? And the move was between 625, 600, 625, 600, 625, 600, 625, 600. But this move right here the other day got pretty overextended and created a new lower low close. Okay. So what I'll be looking for on Meta is if it's underneath this consolidative 600 level, Meta is trying to potentially fill more of that gap, right? Potentially fill more of that gap. Now I got to be careful on it because again, it's very volatile and we got some support just sitting right here at 580. So right. Again, I can change my sentiment throughout the day inside of our community when we're live trading, right? Because it could change. So if we gap back up into here above 600, okay, cool. Take calls back up and see if it rotates all the way back up. And then there was the dip buy, right? Just got to be open and minded and flexible. But again, I'll mark the daily moving averages. I'll move them down a little bit. So it's right at 620 and then maybe right there at that 612 level. Okay. So that is acting as resistance now because it is below it. All right. Cool. So Meta bottom end of the level, I'm looking at 580 or break below new lows and see if Meta can start moving down into the 570s or so. Meta has typically had around a $15 to $20 average true range. So you can get $15 to $20 out of it potentially if you catch it on the right day. Please be mindful. Meta is not easy to trade, but when there's a really good setup on it and it can go lower or higher, right, it can make a pretty big move. All right, let's look at Tesla. All right, what the heck happened to Tesla? I thought it was bullish, right? I was watching Tesla very closely over the last couple of weeks because Tesla's been having a really good potential setup, right, to go higher, right? It was building inverse head and shoulders. It was building, and it was building. And a lot of folks were getting very bullish around here, which is understandable. I was too, but I was watching it because again, the price action reading around that area, that just means candle structure and candle location around the area. Okay. So if I look at this location, what is the structure of the candle at that location? If I told any of you, what does that candle structure look like? Does that look very bullish to you? These are daily candles. Well, that does, Brian. Well, what about that candle? That was my signal candle to say, guys, ladies, I don't like it. I don't think Tesla is ready to go because it failed back underneath the daily moving average and it is holding underneath it now, which is right at 426. If it picks up steam and breaks 413, a big move is going to happen. Right. And by the time it happened, our group, especially some of the people that trade Tesla very often, I caught a little bit of the scalp or whatever. But by the time it happened, it was like, oh, my gosh. Right. So why was that so key? Because the moving average, the daily 200 moving average, which is this orange line here, was very massive for Tesla to hold. That is a broader term 200-day moving average, which shows extreme bullishness on a stock. Okay. Once that broke, it was over. Okay. So now Well, Brian, we got more moving averages here. I see it. Okay, cool. 395. And then we've got roughly kind of a messy area here. 395 to 403. Okay. You can see here that when it gets around this area, it can act a little funny. Okay. So if it gets around this area, 395, or it holds underneath 400, okay, Tesla has the possibility to come all the way back down to 360. Okay. And there's the next support potentially. We have a little bit of support here, right at 380. Tesla breaks 380. I don't see anything but room down to 350 now. Again, we made such a big move in one day that it could do one of these, right? You see that big move there, and then bam, right back up. Tesla could do that. So watch the reclaim back above 400, and then ultimately like that 405 level, and we start building. Okay. But Tesla, again, pretty strong move down below those moving averages and a pretty strong candle off of those daily moving averages. We'll see where it goes from here. It also broke a little bit of structure. Okay, this uptrend that Tesla was in, look right where it rejected. Uptrend, uptrend, uptrend. Trend was broken right here. So we'll see. We'll see when the week starts. Check chat. Yes, my guys, it's Gordon. I'm on my girl's account. Serena, wonderful, wonderful. When scalping, do you go for strikes for out of the money with a low delta and good volume, or do you play it safe and stay at the money or in the money with higher deltas? Yeah, great question. Great question. It depends on what I'm trading, right? If I'm trading a stock that has a really big ATR, and that just takes time for some people to like understand what that means. Essentially, if you need a list, Meta moves $15, $20, $30. Tesla can move $15, $20, $30 in a day. What else? Microsoft can move $20, $30 in a day, period. Right? If you have those bigger moving AMD, right? Some of you are looking and trading some of the bigger like AVGOs, so on and so forth. Like if you have a stock that can move, and all you have to do is look at the daily candle and say, well, that was AVGO 412 to 485. Well, dang, that was like $20+. So if you have a bigger moving stock, I don't mind trading or scalping a little bit out of the money, right? Because it's so volatile. I'm like, cool, if I can get a cheap contract to move quickly, I don't mind doing that, right? But I need to know where it's trying to go. All right, if a level's broken, like I'll tell my community in live trading while we're trading. And for example, when Tesla was going, I'll typically give a bottom end level because that's what'll happen. When something's going and going and going, Brian, where is this going? Where is it trying to go? I'll give them a bottom end level. I'll say, hey, Tesla, it's broken that level. Next level is 403. So that gives someone more confidence to trade the 400 puts when it's at 413, right? Because the next really level is at 403. So you can get movement on those out of the money puts. That makes sense? Hopefully that helps out a little bit. Okay. Cool. So I won't really trade out of the money contracts too much on like an NVIDIA, an Apple. I'll pretty much do those right in the money or maybe one strike out. If it's maybe Amazon, I may do out of the money a little bit, but not too much on that. Even Palantir, I won't do too much on that. Right? Anything between like a 5 to 8 to 10 ATR, it moves around $5 to $8. I'll try to get something a little bit closer into the money or maybe one strikeout. Okay. All right. If there's any outside like stocks that anyone's looking at, please let me know in the chat. Let's give some bullish stuff. Brian, is there anything like to buy right now? Is there anything like that I can swing call? I would be I'm still a little bit more on the iffy side about swinging calls right now because of days like Friday. You just don't know. You think you have a bottom and then it just falls out. But Walmart, in my opinion, it looked good. But again, I'm waiting a couple of days and I'm seeing candle structure and I'm like, I need to see a little bit more because I don't like the structure of what it's doing at that level. Okay. So Walmart is a recessionary proof kind of safety stock. It's in consumer, discretionary consumer goods, retail. But what I was looking at on Walmart is it came down into a big daily 200 moving average here on Walmart, right? And ever since Walmart holds up that daily 200, it typically bounces, right? Orange line bounces, holds the orange, holds the orange, holds the orange, holds the orange. Okay, it's back at the orange daily 200 moving average, okay, with a gap back above. Okay, so Walmart, what I mean by daily candle structure is that's not the best looking candle at that area, but it's still holding up this big support level. So if Walmart starts building some strength here and we break a new high on Walmart above 121, you can maybe start getting a little bit more comfortable or confident that Walmart is trying to work its way back up to 125 and back up towards that gap, something like that. Okay. So keep your eye on something like Walmart for something that is working in the opposite direction of the market, or something a little bit more chill that you're like, hey, I may want to trade that back up. Okay. Another one, again, you want to look at stocks like, look at McDonald's. Okay. Now, if you trade McDonald's, that's cool. This is another swing opportunity, in my opinion, for either bigger swing trades throughout the summer. I do believe if you're a long-term investor buying stocks like this, I know it's considered like a boomer stock or a DIA or Dow Jones stock, a little bit slower mover. Everybody's on the AI race. But if you're a little bit more conservative in your investing, something like McDonald's, in my opinion, remember, McDonald's is not a retailer. It's a real estate play. Okay. Y'all have seen the McDonald's documentary. Hopefully you know the history of McDonald's. This is a real estate play. They own the plot. They own the real estate that McDonald's land is typically sitting on, right? So don't quote me on that if some of them don't, but look up the history of McDonald's. So this is more of a real estate play on McDonald's, right? Every time it pops up here off of this daily and weekly 200 moving average, and you can see it's holding very, very well. Okay, McDonald's is trying to work its way back up to 300. Okay, so just keep your eye on things like this. Does that mean Brian said enter call options right now for a swing? Not necessarily, but you can trade level to level and get a little bit more confident in it on a higher time frame the more it builds. So if McDonald's breaks above this 283, you can look for McDonald's to start working its way back up like this. Okay. So just keep your alerts on, watch out for that on McDonald's, because it is sitting at a really nice support level. And it's holding up very well when the market was selling. Okay. Relative strength is down 20%. All right. So that's another one that is a little bit less sexy, still makes good money. They could go back to the upside. Okay. Home Depot and Lowe's, same look. Okay. Same look. This looks like how Eli Lilly looked before it took off. All right. So this again is holding up a key support level here around $300. It's got earnings coming up in August. Okay. Home Depot, another one that could start working its way back up, or earnings could send it, or earnings could tank it. But just keep an eye on it. I'm keeping these kind of in orange on my side watches, just to keep an eye on how does it look today? How does it look this week? How does it look in next week? And start seeing it build off of these support levels here. But Home Depot, again, another one kind of like McDonald's, where you would start seeing it over time doing something like that. Okay. If you don't know what I'm talking about with the Eli Lilly chart, look at Eli Lilly when it was doing this. Right? See that big consolidation? There's the breakout. Okay. All right, let's look at Hood, because Bitcoin. I've got two sentiments on Hood. First sentiment is that it's just simply consolidating and sitting here. Okay, sitting here above this 80 mark where it broke out, which could be bullish. Okay, it's definitely, in my opinion, a share buying area. Okay, But when you're consolidating like this, you got to be very careful about where it's actually trying to go directionally. Okay, it's just consolidating, sitting in here. It could go down if Bitcoin goes down further, right? It could do that, or it could build here and take off. So when you're seeing a consolidative period, I don't like to predict, that it's going to break out from here, because it could go lower if Bitcoin or crypto decides to go lower, and then this gets pulled down with it. Okay. So I'm just kind of watching this here, that you can trade the channel for now. Obviously, everyone's trying to get it back up to 100. Brian, it's going to 100. Yes, I know it's going to 100. But by when? How is it going to get there? Was it last week? Everyone thought it was going to continue. No, it pulled all the way back. So be mindful of, it's in a channel for right now on Robinhood. Shares are great in here, right? Dollar cost averaging anywhere underneath $100 in my opinion. And it also looks kind of bullish right here off of 80 to go back up and squeeze, right? So what I'll be just looking for something like that would be either break a previous day high or start building momentum, and maybe I can start seeing maybe a bull flag off of there. All right, something like that. All right. So another potential bullish play that's sitting at a really, really nice support level right there. All right. I could go through a whole list. Hey, what about BAC? Yeah, for sure. Bank of America. Yeah, all the banks look pretty good. Bank of America breaks above 54.36. Right. I love the weekly bullish move here. Trying to target that 56, trying to target a new all-time high breakout, something like that. So yeah, I love that look. Wells Fargo. All right. Moves a little bit faster than Bank of America. Contracts are fairly similar. So I kind of like Wells Fargo if someone, wants a little bit more movement. But Wells Fargo, you can see it has a little bit more room back to all-time highs. But if you're a Bank of America trader, or if you're a Bank of America long-term investor, it looks like it wants to break to a new all-time high personally. See that downtrend got broken on Wells Fargo. That looks pretty good there. Okay, start building out of this channel. Breaks above 84 or 83.56 on Wells Fargo. You're looking for that maybe 90 move. Now, how long would that take? Wells Fargo typically moves what? About, this is a daily chart, maybe $3 a day. On the highest day, maybe 5 to 6. So if you think about that, daily $2 to $3, like it might take a couple of weeks for Wells Fargo and Bank of America to get to your bigger target levels. So this whole week was 76 to 82. It's only a $5 move in a whole week. So if you're trading on that, you want to make sure you give this type of trade at least, in my opinion, 3 months, right? 2 to 3 months on the short end, all right? Just to get that bigger move out of it. Cool. Another bullish play that I hopefully it doesn't go without me, but we want to keep an eye on Oracle, right? Oracle held up fairly well when the market was pulling back. And I'm looking at Oracle potentially pulling back into these moving averages here at 200, holding above that 200. I know it's all the way up in the after hours, got laid back up to 217, but Oracle could have just been a pullback, and then we start ripping like that. So I want to keep an eye on Oracle. I've been watching the price action on it. Shout out to Trent. He's been trading it a little bit more frequently. But I just kind of wanted to watch Oracle for a couple of weeks and just see how it moved, because it's not the first thing I look at. So may just be watching Oracle at 200 to see if it wants to roll back higher. And this was just a pullback. All right. For those that are not inside of our community, that is okay. I always mention that. We'd love to have you inside eventually, sooner than later. A lot of good price action on the market. It's hard to talk about it, on here when it's not happening yet. So if you're trading great off of these, that's wonderful. If you're having a little bit of tough time, we'd love to have you. But in general, right, I do think that a lot of these things have potentials to roll back higher, but we just don't know where it's going just yet until we see how a week is panning out. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, no problem. No problem. No problem. Anybody else got any other ideas that you want me to cover over really quick? Any ideas you want me to cover over? Anything side watched? Let's look at the Madison Square Garden, MSGS. Yeah, just crazy. Like they know something. That's what I always wonder is like they know the Knicks were building. So can you believe the Knicks tickets? $8,000 for the lowest ticket to go to game 3 of the NBA finals. I mean, diehard New York fans, like, they just been waiting for this to happen. I mean, I want them to see it. I personally wanted to see it happen. I mean, I think it'd be good for New York. I think it'd be just cool to see, but that is absolutely diabolical. $200,000 for row 4. Crazy. Let's talk about Bitcoin, and then we'll get up out of here, everybody. Brian, where do you think Bitcoin is going? Where do you think Bitcoin is going? I don't know why it shows that gap fill there. I think this is a key week to see what Bitcoin does off of this 60,000 level. All right. One key thing that's been helping me on Bitcoin, I'll pull it up here. Let's look at the Bitcoin cycle. Let me see if I can just pull it up on Twitter. I think it's in the community, everybody, but let me just pull up Bitcoin cycle days. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see this. All right. We talked about this a while back. Okay, a while back, I've mentioned this before. I think I mentioned it either in our community or I put it in the Bitcoin chat. But do you see the time frame of days of understanding when the cycle of crypto and when the rotation of money will begin to be happening? So 1,064 days, 2014 to 2017. And then we dip. Look where we were at that 1,064 days, right on the dot, December 11th, 2017. We started tanking for 364 days. That goes into 2018. We hit back into a low there in 2018. Okay, we run for 1,064 days. You get the gist. I don't have to run through it, but look at here where we are. Okay, at the 1,064 days, we hit 2025. The market started turning at 126,000, and then we turned at October 6th, 2025. Okay, so if we repeat that cycle, that would put Bitcoin at its low point, potentially back in October of this year. Okay. So where would that put us? If you can see the chart here, I know it's a little bit small, but that's right around that $20,000 to $30,000 mark. Okay. So we're sitting right at a very pivotal point where it could like hold at 60. Doesn't mean don't buy some, doesn't mean don't get involved, right, in some capacity. But if we fall a little bit lower for the next couple of months into that bearish season of the year, September, October, that's when we can get our final flush, where I think personally that will be the bottom. Okay, that will be the bottom. And then guess what? We will run for 1,064 days. So if this gives any confidence in like, hey, like when people say wealth can be built not only with just crypto, but crypto associated assets such as Robinhood, such as Coinbase, right? We're already picking up some things of Coinbase. I'm gonna keep that silent for now inside of our community, but we're already picking up something of Coinbase here right now. Y'all know what it is. And SoFi could be involved with that as well because crypto can be bought on SoFi. Okay, so if you're wondering where the bottoms are, look at historical context. And if that helps you give any confidence, then that will help people chill out over the summer. Okay, like I know everyone wants to go on vacation. Chill out. Chill out. Okay, you do you. You do you. Let's go. How about Ford? Yeah, for sure. If y'all got any final questions, I'm gonna wrap it up here at the top of the hour. Ford. Looks like it's retesting here. Got to see what it does this week. Let me turn on the moving averages. I like it better. Back down into maybe. This is a tough chart. It's extremely bullish, but we got knocked down. I mean, again, right around this kind of $18 level pretty dramatically. Last time it did that, you kind of see it holds up right around this $13.90, $14 level. But if it gets below there, I mean, Ford could go down again. So it's a tough chart. And because it's a slower mover, got a little bit more cautious with it. But I would say stick with the bullish side right now. And it's retesting. If I go into the 2 hour, the hourly right here at this $14 level, 15 level, last time it hit here, went back up to 17. So I would stay bullish on it. And I'm not sure if you're asking about shares or maybe a call option, but as long as you know where your stop loss is, right? If you enter a call right around this $14 to $15 level, can work your way back up to 15, 16, and just keep your stop loss below that 14.50 or even working it back to 14.30. But I would say 14.50 would be your stop loss. All right. I'm looking at call options back up because of the momentum that you saw on the weekly chart. If I pull a fib down as well, it's sitting pretty much right around that 61.8. If I pull it the opposite direction, all right, pulling back into that 38.2, which buyers should step up, roll it back to the 16, and then if you can start getting a candle that rolls back up here, then cool. I just don't like the engulfing of the whole last weekly candle. That's my only concern. All right, with a very little like wick at the bottom of here. It just shows me that if we get a little bit of a pop, just be careful of more continuation. Let me know if that helps. Let me know if that helps. Cool. We'll see. We'll see this week what we get. But these weeks like this, I mean, look at this. Look at the structure of this. Like, this is the SMH. Okay. That is the semiconductor ETF, and we have an inverted hammer candle sitting on a weekly chart. When I see something like that, typically you get a little bit of a pop and then you get continuation. So I would say that semis probably have lower potentially with that type of candle structure unless something flips. What else was going to mention really quickly? What was it? Dang, my mind's going blank. Mine's going blank. IGV. Yeah, we'll just have to see. Maybe it'll come to me before I end it, but call options. Yeah. Appreciate you. Yeah, looking at calls on Ford. Yeah. I was going to mention about golf. Yeah, it's hot in here in Vegas. It's hot. It's hot. So been practicing, but no official round, but been practicing. So that's been good. Any trips I'm taking? Probably just go over to Cali throughout the summer. That's typically what I've noticed in the last 2 years that people are in Vegas. And it's only a 3 to 4 hour drive over to San Diego, LA. So probably just do that personally. If y'all didn't know, my thesis over the last 2 years has always been, and I've told people this, midterm years, and I think people understand what those are now. Midterm years, I typically chill a lot, right? So while everyone's traveling, going on vacation, like that's warranted, that's fine. But like midterm years are years where there's opportunities. So remember 2022, that was the bear market season where we ran, right? 2018, another midterm year where it was a little shaky. We ran, and then we got 2020, right? Fluke, and then we ran. So 2026 for me, like I was preparing to like just chill. Like I'm not really outside like that. I will enjoy myself, but I really want to just hone in on what are you building now, because midterm years are typically transformational years. And in my opinion, a lot of people don't have that discipline to do so because they're living in a cycle. But I've always done that for probably the last 3 to 4 midterm cycles. 2018 was a transformational year for me and my business. That was like my first real year in entrepreneurship, full time out of pharmacy school. 2022 was a transformational year for our community and my business in general. Y'all remember Turo, all that stuff, like transformational credit cards. And then this year for the stock market, and so on and so forth. So I'm chilling. That's a long-winded answer to say I don't really have any trips planned. That's not the sexy thing to say either. People want to see people having fun, balling out, so on and so forth. And that's just not where my head's at right now. I'm thinking further out. Anybody got any other thoughts, questions, perspectives? Cool. Think we're good. Going once, going twice. Just rolling back up for the comments. Audrey, what I typically do for me personally, and I'll just make it, translatable to Robinhood more specifically, is if you have a day trading account at Robinhood, just they have a spending account. But if you want to just make it simple, just make an extra brokerage, if you'd like. And again, just because this is a public, platform, I gotta say non-financial advice and all that. But, yeah, just make a separate brokerage account and then move your profits over into there. You can even rename it just profits, and just keep it in there as a cash account. But every day, every other day, like have a routine. Like, hey, I made $500 today. Let me take out half. Right? Hey, I made $500 in 2 or 3 days. Let me take out all of it. Right? So get comfortable. I always tell people that get comfortable. As much as people want to show the man, I turned $1,000 into 5,000 and now I have a $5,000 account. Now I can trade with more, but you haven't locked any profits into your bank account. Right? So be mindful of every day, potentially now that we have no PDT rule, every day, every other day, every week, if you're profitable, start moving some of those profits into your bank account. And again, coffee on me tomorrow. Got any more merch? Yeah, like what type of merch you talking about? As far as like maybe t-shirts and stuff coming. Yeah, I'm going to be creating that. We got our in-person event that I'm planning right now that will be coming out as an announcement for the community. Is the community Discord? Yep, exactly. Yep, the community's Discord. So I'll be announcing that to give people at least a 3-month headway. So I've been planning that, as far as having about roughly trying to have about 15 to 20 people in person. If I have more interest in that, and it will be paid, it just got to do it. It will be paid. It'll probably be 2 days. I'm looking at Thursday, Friday. And if you want to just kind of stay the weekend for Vegas and make your money, Trent's going to put something on black over here in Vegas. But yeah, that's what I'm planning now. But merch, yeah, I'll be coming out with some t-shirts and stuff. It's a little bit hot right now, for the hoodies maybe, but yeah, there's hats and hoodies available. As I think you grabbed a hat, Sherry. Let's see. ARM. Just wanting to create extra discipline for myself for now. I reinvest my profits for a little bit. Yeah. There's our little after hours right at the time we're about to head out. A little bit of after hours. 740 pop on SPY. There's our QQQ pop up into 710. And you're mentioning ARM. What I would watch for ARM is because you're going to be gapped up in the morning, I'd watch a higher end retest level where we broke below, which was Thursday's low, about 367. So if you can catch calls maybe up to 367, I'd watch for that. But at 367 or maybe that psych level of 370, watch what it does there because it will still be below a previous day low. All right, so that's what I will say on ARM. The lower end of the level, ARM never reached down to its daily 20. So ARM, and if the semiconductor sector gets weak, ARM may want down into 300 somehow, some way, right? If it stays in this lower high downtrend. So here's how it look on the candlesticks there. Okay, if it pops up into there, keep that lower high right there, 367. Okay, if you start seeing that reject or can't go higher and it starts rolling lower, okay, something like that. Cool. Just my thoughts. That'll be my first A+ setup. But if it reclaims, just watch previous day high, gets back above with strength. You start seeing it work away, back above there. I would look for a break and a retest to go higher. So break, maybe a retest like that, and then go higher. Cool. All right. Yeah, no problem. Appreciate you, Trent. Appreciate you, man. Love it. Think we're good. If you got any more questions, all the other information will be down in the chat or the comments. And if y'all like to join Leverage University at some point or just gain more information on it, just shoot me a message on our socials right there, and we can get more information. All right, cool. Peace, love, and blessings. I'll talk to y'all later. I'll see y'all first thing in the morning in live trading at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.